Greetings, Stars fans! Welcome to the Two Brothers Mic'd Up show. This is game number 22 of the Dallas Stars 2015-2016 season against the Ottawa Senators. Now, Ottawa comes into this game with 2 straight shutouts, and, you know, this was not the game that I think everyone thought we were going to get out of the Stars. But, as usual, from the start of the video, we go to past predictions from the last video, so remember to always watch till the end so you can get those predictions. Quinn, you said the scores for both teams, if they were going to come on top, was going to be a score of 2-1. You thought it would have been a tight, defensively sound game, low scoring. That was absolutely not...
Who saw this coming?
Yeah. I said that if Dallas were to come on top, I liked the score of 4-2. They keep up with that above 3 goals average that they are, pretty much going throughout the whole season. And I said, and I liked the score of 2-1 if Ottawa was going to come on top. But we vastly underestimated the Ottawa Senators. I mean, I know they were 10-5 coming into this game, and that's a good record. But Dallas had won, 7 straight dating back to 2008 against the Senators. So it was one of those games. It's one of those games it's like, oh well, this could be a gimme because it's just like the Washington Capitals. Like the Washington Capitals are a great team. But for some reason, Dallas has had their number for multiple seasons. And that was the case with Ottawa. But, this vastly was not the game that I think we all signed up for. And definitely did not want to go into the turkey break with this game. But let's start off with Niemi getting his second straight start. But I think this is his worst game. Granted, he had the losses against Colorado and both Toronto games. But I honestly don't think those Toronto games were really all his fault because he wasn't letting in bad goals. Now, this game, on the other hand, a lot of the goals that Ottawa was getting were coming off turnovers. And you could tell that Niemi wasn't really set up in his positioning. He just really couldn't get settled. But granted, some of those goals he needed to stop and very well probably could have stopped. I mean, you say probably because you just don't know. Because, quite frankly, we aren't professional hockey goaltenders. So it was just one of those games that none of the goals were deflections. They were just straight on shots. It wasn't like he was being screened in a lot of the times. They were just all off turnovers that you just couldn't really see him getting set in his positioning, which hurt him in the end. Yeah.
Especially that first Klingberg, I think that really set the tone for the game.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And then we see that Demers is injured in the previous game against Buffalo, doesn't return. Now, you could immediately see his impact not being in the lineup. Demers, I think, rounds out the top 2 D pairs very soundly. I mean, it's the reason why he's paired with Oduya, because you can pretty much guarantee that he's going to make some good plays. He keeps a lot of the defensive positioning that you need. He's really smart with the puck, not really known as a turnover machine. And we saw that impact whenever we had to see both Jordy Ben and Yoki Paka and Alexiak all in the lineup. Alexiak is what was his 5th game of the season, I think.
Yeah.
So he's not in season mode just yet. I mean, I think you need more than just the sample size that he's had to really get in a rhythm of the NHL. But then when you saw them splitting up, Ben and Yoki Paka, and everything like that. I think what was Ben with Oduya, or was Yoki Paka with Oduya?
Ben was with Oduya.
Okay, yeah. So no one is playing other than Klingberg and Goligoski is playing with their, proper pair. So, it just from the jump, it just had a strange feeling that this was going to be one of those long games that if you didn't drink, you definitely drank after that game. That turned a sober man into probably an alcoholic from that game. It's and a lot of talk before this game was a lot on Carlson and Klingberg, because the NHL.com had released the early standings for Norris and said that Carlson was the front runner for the Norris Trophy. And a lot of Dallas fans, and I think hockey fans in general, were saying, well, I think you're forgetting about Klingberg. He's atop of the defensemen in points right now. I think he's leading in plus minus with defensemen. So it was one of those things. It's like, okay, this is a game that is going to show why Klingberg should be the early front runner and not Carlson. But from this game, we still saw that Klingberg is in his second ever season with the NHL. You see that he is still green. He's still considered a young talent in this league that is going to make mistakes. It's one of those things that it'll work itself out, and he'll learn from these games, but he is still really, really young. And like I said, it's only his second season in the NHL. So how did you like the beginning of the game?
I don't really think anybody could like that beginning of the game. From the first turnover that I saw Klingberg make, I just had that notion in my head. It's like, please don't let it be that kind of a game.
Yeah,
and of course,
it was.
History repeats itself, just like everybody says.
Yeah,
that game was just not Dallas's to take.
Yeah, it was one of those. He could have made a million different hockey plays that probably would have been safer, but elected to go with the hurried up play and just wasn't thinking and got his pocket picked. Now, with Demers out, we don't know when he's going to return. I think Lindy Ruff was saying in practice before the game that he was close to returning, but he might be out next game. We don't know, but does this game show a glimpse that Nemeth could draw into next game, and then maybe Oleksiak gets set, or maybe Jordy gets set, or Yoki Paka? What's your take on that?
I don't think they're going to take Oleksiak out. I honestly feel Oleksiak is one of the better defensemen in that game. Like, you could easily see most of the mistakes were coming from the top pair of Goligoski and Klingberg, but you obviously can't sit your Norris Trophy candidate defenseman. And Goligoski, he's the alternate captain. You can't sit him. I really feel like maybe Ben or Yoki Paka should take a step down.
Yeah, I mean, when Jordy was out of the lineup, it showed. When Oleksiak came in, we got to see a glimpse of how Oleksiak could really play. Now, I think Ben and Yoki Paka were both, victims in this game, so it's hard to really say who was worse, even though Jordy Ben did have that nice sauce cross ice pass to Ben, with Razor probably giving his greatest line ever of double penetration. That, it's hard to say who had a worse game. I think maybe Yoki Paka probably had the worst of the two, but that's not saying much. So it's one of those things that, do you think Nimith draws into either the next game or the game after that after a turnout like they just did?
I mean, you could easily see why it would be good to get Nimith in after that kind of game. You know, maybe some people are just being overworked coming from the bottom 4D. You know, I think it's a perfect time to get him in there.
Yeah.
Let him really start to play hockey. Because I read in an article, like, he understands it's a numbers game and that he's the odd man out, but he's not going to be able to play any hockey with the way that the Stars are going, and he's okay with that. But I think now is the time for him to prove that he can get out there and play with the Dallas system.
Yeah, you could really tell there was a overall frustration from the whole game, because Lindy Ruff was quoted from his post-game interviews saying, "We played last year's hockey and got last year's results." And that's actually a perfect analysis of the game, because the Stars didn't take the advantage of the chances that they were given right there in the first when they were getting some good chances. But then in the second, when Patrick Sharp scores, great goal. I mean, that's something that he's been missing over the past few games, that he hasn't been hitting the back of the net, but he's been contributing more on like Ben's goals or other goals. So it was good to see him score, but they just couldn't hold their momentum. Like, every time something good started happening for the Stars, Ottawa was taking it right away. Now, after Patrick Sharp's goal, Jamie Benn had a great chance to stuff one in and to make it two even, but Craig Anderson was playing on his head. He was making all sorts of great saves, and it was just one of those things that you could tell the Stars were fully frustrated. And that even goes into the third period, where, I mean, again, the Dallas Stars have showed, and even in this game, they showed they are the best third period team, because they come out and they get those 3 goals, one shorthanded from Ben, and then you get Tyler Seguin making it 5-3. But even whenever it was going up 5-3 and there was still like 12 minutes to play in the game, Ottawa came back 2 minutes later and made it 6-3. And then Ben comes and makes it 6-4, but then Craig Anderson makes that fantastic shoulder save on Ben to deny his hat trick. It was just one of those things that every time the Stars started to show their hand, it was just like poker. You know, Dallas comes out with 2 pair, but Ottawa lays down, 3 of a kind to wipe out any kind of momentum that the Stars were going to have. But then at the beginning of the third period, we also see something that, was actually very terrible, and if it turns out to be serious, this could be where the Stars season is defined. And that is when John Klingberg was tied up with Lazar. He gets tied up in the most awkward way, and he full on like back throws, body checks Kari Lehtinen in like the head and part of his neck. It was just all around weird and awkward to look at. And then Kari Lehtinen goes out. He goes for the concussion protocol, but doesn't return. But quite honestly, he didn't need to return. The game was already out of hand, so it was one of those things like, if you damned if you do, you damned if you don't. So he didn't need to return. But what's your take on how does this season go if Kari is out for like 3 weeks or longer?
I mean, that's definitely a tough break, especially coming off a huge loss like this. on Niemi, you wonder how that's going to affect his confidence, and then you got to bring in somebody from the AHL or claim somebody on waivers. And thankfully, Texas has a goalie that's been on quite a good winning streak. So, luckily, it won't be a complete loss.
Well, I mean, if Kari can't return, I mean, granted, Niemi will be the number one goaltender, and we probably won't see any backup play anytime soon. But it's one of those things that our system has been working so well, and Kari had been playing so well. This could be the thing that sets Kari's progress back to square one, to where, because remember when he had gotten hurt a couple of seasons ago, and I think he might have gotten, it was probably the same injury for a concussion, but it didn't look like he had really full time to heal. And then all of last season, it just didn't look like Kari was playing to his potential, because he was probably still feeling the effects of that said concussion. So it's one of those things, is that the Stars have to pray that this is nothing serious, because this could set Kari back, and if that does, that sets this team back as well. But from the overall defensive game, I'm talking about even forwards, how did you feel the game was really played? Because we saw some of the best puck management and puck movement the Stars had seen all season.
What defense?
It was one of those things that it didn't look like they were really in position all that much. And whenever Ottawa had the puck never, even on especially on the power play, the puck didn't stay on a stick for longer than 3 seconds. It was all sharp laser beam passes to each other, really trying to spread the Stars out, to really try to get them to get that confusion going. That it was unreal to see that kind of puck movement from the Ottawa Senators, because quite frankly, I haven't watched a single game from Ottawa, and I think that's why everyone is so stunned from this game, is that they were clearly the better team. And we're used to seeing the Stars having good puck management, good puck movement. And not even when we were playing against, the Washington Capitals or the Detroit Red Wings, teams that really pride themselves on puck management and puck movement. No team from what I've been seeing compared to last night's Ottawa Senators. So that's what's worrying, is that teams could look at this game and really start to see the holes that the Stars have. And hopefully the Stars are going and watching and rewatching the tape on this game to really figure out where the holes were. But here's a question that I have for you, and for the audience as well. Was this the worst game that the Stars have played this season?
In my opinion, yes.
And why do you say that?
I say that because they've been scored on with 6 goals, one other time or 2 other times with Florida and Colorado.
Yeah.
But you take a look back at those games, and I feel like the defensive side of the game was better in those 2 games. This game, it seemed like nobody knew what to do. Everybody's trying to make a pass right in front of the net. Everybody's trying to send the home run. And, a lot of those goals, too, were scored in the third period, so you can't really bring that into the equation on that's what made this game better. Because the Stars are the best third period team in the league. So, of course, they're going to get goals then.
Okay, but so you rank this game as by far worse than the Toronto games, either of them.
Oh yeah, because a lot of the Toronto goals that they got were lucky bounces. I don't see really any lucky bounces in this game for Ottawa. They played hard, they made their turnovers happen, and they capitalized on it.
And see, I think for me, this was not the worst game that the Stars have played this season. And I'll tell you why. Because the Ottawa Senators are a good team. They have good goaltending. They have good puck management and puck movement from what we're seeing. They are coming off 2 straight shutouts over, I think it was Philadelphia, and the other team slips my mind. But I find those Toronto games so much worse because they had only, especially that first Toronto game, I mean, they had only 1 win, and it was against Columbus. And then going into the second game, all they did was just get outplayed by a goaltender, not even outplayed by the players, which says those games to me have to be by far the worst of the season. This is a loss against a good team, which that means you take the lump and you move on. So I can't say this was the worst game that I've seen the Stars play, even though it looked like it, even on paper. So I think after Ottawa had their 7th goal, it was their 17th shot. So combined between our 2 goalies, it was a 10 save game. I think they were generous in giving Ottawa 20 shots in the final stats. I think that was a little generous. But yeah, I think it was. I think this was not the worst game. I think those Toronto games measure up to be worse. Not by much, of course, but I do feel like this was not the worst game because they got beat by a better team. Now, the other losses that the Stars have, they did not get beat by a better team. I think that's why, this is one of those things that they just have to learn from. But another subject that I would like to ask you and the fans and audience as well, I want to talk about bandwagoning, because I'm starting to see a lot of stuff on Facebook or in some forums and stuff like that, is that Dallas Stars fans have to watch out because the bandwagon fans are starting to turn out for this team. And bandwagoning is usually used in a negative term. And I'm going to say why the Stars should be absolutely thrilled and why fans should be absolutely thrilled with having bandwagon fans. Bandwagon fans means this team gets more revenue, more attention, more national broadcast. We've been screaming as a fan base that it just seems like the national media is ignoring this team, and the Stars are making so much noise right now that it makes sense for this team to have bandwagon fans. I think Stars fans, we should all embrace any fan that wants to come on right now. Welcome them as if they've been with this team forever, because that's what this team deserves. We deserve fans everywhere. This team is too good to have it to where no one is talking about this team. It's great that we're the homegrown fans and everything like that, but eventually this team needs to grow with their fan base, and it has to not be looked as a negative thing. We should welcome anybody that wants to talk hockey and with Stars. What's your take, and how do you feel about the growing talks of bandwagoning coming towards Dallas?
I mean, I really don't have an opinion about bandwagoning. Bandwagoning happens everywhere. It happens when all the teams start doing good. I mean, honestly, I agree that we should embrace it and use this as like a way to start making noise. But I mean, I really don't have an opinion about bandwagoning. It comes and goes.
Yeah, because I was reading an article on Defending Big D about like the biggest disappointments of the season so far, and their last big disappointment that they had was on national media, and how the Stars are only slated for one or I think two more national games. But I think the NHL could slate in more games because of how well the Stars are doing, and kind of like the snubbing of the Stars for their Stadium Series against Minnesota. Well, granted, that was more Minnesota because they were little bitches, because they didn't want to play us. They'd rather play Chicago because they have more of a national audience. But it's one of those things that Stars fans have been screaming for attention, and now that they're getting attention, it's one of those things like, no, you can't come on now. No, you needed to be here before this was happening. But it doesn't work like that. If you weren't allowing people to come in, this fan base does not grow, and the team does not grow because of it. So you need to embrace all these new fans that are coming. It's only going to help the Stars. That gets more money to the Stars. So it's a win-win for everyone. Granted, you might have to deal with people that don't know about the game or about the Stars' history, but I mean, this is a new team. Like, this isn't the 90s anymore, to where everyone around here is really grown up on, especially me and you. We grew up whenever this team first came in 93. But I want more fans to come on, because, you know what? I love every other Dallas team, but I am so tired of the Stars being 17-5 right now and still getting drowned out by baseball and basketball and football. This is a football town. Yes, I get it, but the Stars are making a case to why they are the best team in Dallas right now, and no one's talking about them. Except that's why we kind of started this, because no one's really talking about them except Dallas Stars fans. So that's my little soapbox on that whole thing. Let's go into the rating that you gave for the Ottawa game.
I mean, I honestly think this is probably one of their worst games that they've played. I'd probably say a D plus.
A D plus?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear you if you said D or B, so I was like B plus. Wow. Okay.
Oh no. The only reason why they don't get an F is because they have their offensive game, and it shines in the third period, so that gives them that hope. But man, Ottawa just drowns them out.
Yeah, no, they absolutely did. I gave a rating of D on the sheer fact that they had that offensive outturn in the third, so they had this team has fight in them. And they don't really want to go down quietly. But damn, that was the quietest fight that I've seen in this team so far this season. So they get a D. Not really much else you can say for that game. The Stars played the Vancouver Canucks. We see them for the second time this season. What predictions do you have for that game?
Well, I mean, the Sedins are going to come in and try to establish their little twin-like game that they have, and hopefully Rabada has a quiet night. So I'm going to say if the Dallas Stars come on top, it's going to be, I'm going to say if Niemi's in net, they're definitely going to need to score a lot. So I'm going to say it's going to be 5-3. And if Vancouver comes on top, I feel like it's going to be another showing of how this Dallas team played the other night against Ottawa, and I feel like it's going to be 5-1 for Vancouver.
Wow, damn. Okay. It was a close game when Vancouver was first here a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to say it'll be another tight game. I think a score of 4 4-3. I think that works out. And if Vancouver's coming on top, I like the score of 4-2. I think each team, whoever wins, first to 4 wins. So, that is the conversation that we just had. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe, share anywhere you would like. Give us any feedback on what you liked, what you didn't like. Anything helps. Remember, this is a show for fans, by fans. And, as always, tune in next time.